Hi, in this video I want to talk about exporting. Before I do that, I want to go back over and remind you why, one of the many reasons why it's important or useful to work in Lightroom. You may be thinking at this point, like, why would I go to all this trouble of building this catalog and be so confused and have to move my files around? Why would I do that when I could just go into Bridge and just make a folder and send them out? Well, let me remind you, we're now working with raw files. And raw files are wonderful things because they actually have so much information and so many possibilities for development, which we're going to get into next week and really cover a great deal for the rest of the semester. But in order to do that, we need to be in a program that can read and work with raw files. So one of the wonderful things, once we bring things into Lightroom, we can look at these raw files and work with them directly in the development module. These are all raw files. These are all the original raw files, and you can tell that they're raw by looking down here. They are a .nef, and that is the Nikon raw file. It might be CR2, it might be one of the other raw file formats that is compatible with Lightroom. And so these are all raw files that have not been developed. So this is exciting because I can both look at them, but also I can make changes. Now, I'm not going to get into the develop module in detail now, but I want to make a couple of changes. Let's go back to our grid view. I want to make a couple of changes to a few of these files just to show you what it would be like. And I'm just going to pick some files that I like. I think actually this one, and I can move them together. In master folders, you really can't, but in these, you actually have the option. I'm going to move these down, move this down. Let me pick a couple more. And remember, I can do my command view, and I'll just move some of these files up to the top. Let me just take a look through really quick, see if I like these. Yeah, these are all interesting photos. I think we'll move one of these down. I think we'll do this one. Well, we'll just play with the rest of these. So let's just look at a few of these. We can go into the develop module. We can crop them, and that's a very easy thing to do, just bring in the sides. We don't want to do a lot, but just to give it a little more emphasis. On this one, I can bring up the shadows just so we can see his eye a little better. On this one, I'm just going to change the temperature, make it a little warmer. This one I'll definitely crop. There's a lot of extra space there. And maybe also bring up the shadow so we can see him. This one I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit, and I'm going to crop. And I think there's one more. Let's take a look. Now we'll stop there. So if we go back to the grid view, we have 5 of them that we've made changes to. And let's pretend that those are the ones that we want to export and upload for our assignment. I've got these in 3 ways just for convenience. I know that this is not the 3 ways assignment, but let's just pretend that these are our 5 finals for an assignment. I'm going to click on all of them and select them all, and it's exactly the same in Lightroom as it is in other programs. If I click the first one, hold the shift key, click the last one, it selects all of these that are together. If for some reason I didn't want to select one, let's actually say we don't really like this one. I could hold the command key and deselect it. I could also go down and select some others. So let's just go ahead and export these 4 as if they're going to an assignment. So down here next to the import button, there's also an export button. What exporting means is that you are creating a copy of these files and exporting it and putting it either with the original files or in a brand new location in order to have a copy of it. Generally, you're exporting them in order to make a change to them or to embed the changes that you've made and to change the format so that it makes more sense for wherever it's going. So for this case, if we want to send this out as the assignment, we want to keep the changes that we made in the development module, and we want to change these from raw files to a format that can be exported. So I hit export. Now this menu is frequently very daunting to people. I'll say two things. One, don't get caught up in the details. I'm going to give you a handful of places to look at, but do go through, start at the very top and make sure you go through all of these options and make sure that any of the ones that I'm explaining that you need to change, make a change. So of course the location is very important, and this is something I remind you of a lot, that you actually want to be sure that you choose where things are going. This is defaulting to whatever I did in this window last time, so we want to make sure we look at it. But looks like it is going into the ideal students. So let's choose, make sure it's going on to my external hard drive, into all my photos, into photo 29. And since we brought these out of the 3-ways folder, I'm going to just put them back in here. Now, we can do this a couple of different ways. We could put a new folder in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose it, and I can put a subfolder here, and I'm going to call this Finals, and that's going to add a subfolder also. One of the things about all of these programs that may drive you crazy is there's usually more than one way to do absolutely everything. So we've got that. The next one is the file naming. This is really handy. You don't have to rename them, but it's actually a really good idea. So in this case, so you can just leave that unchecked, but if you check it, you're going to want to go in and choose one of these. If it says file name sequence, it's going to pick a generic file name. What you want is to go to custom name, and with custom name you can actually just go in and call it final photos. Remember, no, since it's a file name, no spaces. So I'm just going to name those final photos. It will name all those photos that way. The next thing you're going to come to is videos. These aren't videos, so you don't need to worry about that. The next one is file settings, and this is the one that you really want to pay attention to. If you did original, it's going to send out the original raw files without any of the changes that you've made. If you sent it out as a PSD, it would put the changes in it, but it would turn it into a Photoshop document, which is not terribly readable. It's larger, but not terribly readable. What we want for this, and there's other options as well, but what we want is a JPEG. And remember that the JPEG is the very readable, universally readable file that we can post online, we can send to grandma, we can trade with our friends, we can put it on Instagram. So we're going to actually export these as JPEGs. Now, remember, this isn't doing anything to the original file. The original raw file stays put, but it creates a copy of that file with the changes we made as a JPEG. Really cool, really convenient, and it's going to put it in this separate folder so we can work from there. The rest of this, don't worry about image sizing for now. I'll talk to you about that later. And if this is actually clicked on, just click it off. Output sharpening, we don't need to worry about that. The metadata, don't touch this window, but make sure it says that if it says all metadata, just leave it there. Don't click any of these boxes, and don't worry about watermarking or post-processing. Click export, and you'll see the process up here. 4 files won't take terribly long. There you go, and you won't see anything in the window because we exported it to another location. If we go to 3-ways, go to finals, there are the 4 photos. Let me just pull those up so you can see that the changes we made are included. The cropping, The changes in exposure are all part of those final files, and they are JPEGs, which are easy to upload to Canvas, send to grandma, put on Instagram, all of those other things. So for all assignments, once you complete all of your changes, all of your organization, you will export these as JPEGs, and those are the ones that you will post to Canvas.